Hi, everybody, and welcome to AZ Central Sports Roundtable, joined by Greg Moore and Duane Rankin. I am Richard Morin, coming to you remotely, of course. Kudos to our producer, Brian Snyder, back in the AZ Central studios, holding it down for us, bringing you guys this remote version of the show. Greg and Duane, obviously right now, the sports world in flux because of the ongoing and developing coronavirus situation. And Duane, I want to get to you first because the NBA still seems to be the nexus of this issue. What is the latest going on right now with coronavirus and with the NBA? What can you share with us?
It's more like, I don't want to call it chaos, but it's reaching that point in terms of what's being shut down. Just came out with 4 players from the Nets testing positive for the coronavirus. I'm seeing reports that Kevin Durant's already came out and said he's one of the 4 that has it. So, you know, it's like you have a situation where teams, what do? Do they huddle up? Do they get together? I know the Suns were talking about, I talked with James Jones last Friday. He basically was like they were trying to do a team activity. He called it an activity today. Well, today is coming from what people I've talked to. They're still got the players are still on lockdown. So this is a ever-flowing, ever-fluid situation. How do you handle it from it's almost like from hour to hour. It's not even like day to day anymore. It's like, okay, this happens, let's react to this. This happens, let's react to that. So it's just a very fluid and a unknown. There's such an unknown with what to do, what not to do. And then the league is they're setting up sort of a precedent with it. But then you see the SEC shutting down all competition. It's like it's just, I don't see this stopping anytime soon.
And Greg, obviously, what has been your takeaway from this situation so far? Obviously, it was funny because, I sat down with Duane and Kent to record the first episode of this series, and that was last Wednesday. Little did we know, a few hours later, the entire sports world was going to be changed. Can you put this into perspective for us at all?
Yeah. The first thing I'm thinking, though, is thank God for Rudy Gobert. Look, Rudy Gobert, he touches everybody's microphone. He makes a big joke about it. Then, boom, he's got it. Then you find out that his teammate Donovan Mitchell's got it. Then you find out that he's passing out his arm sleeves up at at Little Caesars Arena in Detroit. Then you find out that one of the kids who got the arm sleeve, his family's on quarantine. Then you find out that one of the guys who plays for the Pistons, he's got it. That made it real, right? We don't know what this whole thing looks like or could look like in a real way until it has a face. And Rudy Gobert became that face. So right now he looks like a villain. And I wrote about this. The column is online. Rudy Gobert might look like a villain, but he could end up being the hero in all this because he could make it real and make people change their behavior. His case shut down the NBA, which then dominoed out, shut down the sports world. And if in the United States the death toll is lower and the spread is lower than it has been in other nations, we can look at the case of Rudy Gobert and say, that was the moment where we all started to make some changes.
Well, certainly head to sports.azcentral.com. You guys can read Greg's column on that. And I know both Greg and Duane, a lot of people are wondering, when are we going to get sports back? When will these sports resume? When do we get NBA back? When is the NHL coming back? When will Major League Baseball start their season? But as much as we're concerned about the short-term answers, what about the long-term answers, right? We're always going to look back on this time as the coronavirus season when we look back and try to compare seasons and compare players. I mean, have either of you guys been able to wrap your heads around what this means for the implications of sports moving forward in a long-term capacity?
Greg, if you want to touch on that first, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Listen, for me, sports are a way for us to connect with each other, right? I've got sons, I've got daughters, I've got 4 kids. They're all very small. My sons are 9 years old. Well, one of them sat with me and watched the documentary Women of Troy. Now he knows that Cheryl Miller is the greatest women's basketball player of all time. He knows Ann Myers Drysdale. He knows Nancy Lieberman. He knows Cynthia Cooper. He's going to be a better sports fan moving forward. They've got a buddy. The buddy happened to be born in Ukraine. I used this as an opportunity to teach them how to use basketball reference and how to filter for players who came from Ukraine. They didn't know Vitaly Potapiko, the Ukraine train. They didn't know that Alex Lynn was from Ukraine. They now know how to look at the statistics and figure out who's got more points, more rebounds, more games played, more years in the NBA. Right. So for me, if you're talking about long-term implications, I think that my family, our generations are connected differently and better than they otherwise would have been. And I think my sons are going to be better sports fans moving forward. My daughters are 3 and 1. So, you know, we got some time there. But I think that there could be some really beneficial things to happen long term.
Well said, Greg. And Duane, do you have anything to add to that?
No question. That was very well put. Well, for me, athletes are always looked as, immortal. Can't be touched, can't be affected by anything. Like they're above because of their physical athletic ability, physical gifts. And what this has done is made them human again. Now it's like, okay, well, if he has it, then okay, he's just like us. Whereas before it was this whole idea of, well, you're in awe of somebody. Now it's like, wow, this is so serious that this person that we call Spider-Man and Donovan Mitchell is now just like, is on a human level. And I think that's where I see it. I see it as, hey, look, this can happen to anybody. You can be the healthiest individual. We know how the league trains. We know how these guys put their bodies on the line and do all these things to protect themselves. And you think, okay, they're invulnerable. No, they're not. They're just as vulnerable as anybody else. So that's what I see in a long-term effect. Maybe that's going to create a connection to where, the athlete is now like, okay, we're not, above. And I think that may change their mindset on how they move forward in terms of how they deal with just people in general. I think that this is something that, and I just, because of the unknown, I can't really put a thing and say, oh, it'll be this way next year. Because we don't even know what that's going to be next year. We have no clue.
Yeah, and I think, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, no, one thing that keeps jumping into my mind, though, is that we've always kind of used sports as a respite. We've always kind of used sports as a way to get ourselves out of whatever's happening. And in this case, it was actually sports that put us where we needed to be, at least according to World Health officials, right? So right. None of us were there, but I read that baseball kept playing in World War II, right? We remember that 9/11, football happened the very next week. We remember some things. And sports allowed us to take a break from the thing that we were dealing with. Well, in this case, there were a lot of people who were really reluctant. You heard people saying, I don't trust this. I don't think it's that big of a deal. This isn't real. But it wasn't until it invaded the sports world that you started seeing schools close. It wasn't until it started invading the sports world so people started deciding to stay in the house. And then you started to hear like more and more respect for what officials were asking for. And again, this really could help halt the spread if it goes the way that I'm understanding it based on the things I'm reading, right? I'm no expert, but I'm reading stuff. And again, that sports could be a leader in human behavior and be a leader to make us do things that ultimately could make us safer. I think that's a really watershed moment.